Welcome back to part 3 of our tutorial making of a Minotaur. In part 1 we showed you how to create your custom base character using Reallusion's character creator, as you see on the screen, with the various morphs to get your body shape. In tutorial part 2 we showed you how to create various clothing articles for your character, and also went into some texturing within Zbrush and normal mapping and that sort of thing. So now in part 3 we're going to tie that all together and show you how to then import the clothing that you created back into Character Creator so you can create a fully clothed and textures character for future use. So you can see on the screen we've created all of our different clothing items in Zbrush, and we have our OBJ files in our folder. So in order to get them onto our Character Creator base body, we need to go into 3ds Max, and the process is actually very simple to do so. I'm going to go ahead and just import our base character file, which, if you recall, when we were exporting it from Character Creator, we called it Minotaur Base Modified. So I'm just going to open that base character up, and it will then bring our Character Creator Minotaur into our stage. So in order to get the clothes onto the Minotaur, all we have to do is go back to our import function, and we're going to just import the OBJ files themselves. So we'll start with the chest belt, and when you're importing the actual file itself, you do want to convert it over to centimeters as far as the unit of measurement, because that will just populate the cloth into the stage on the body where we want it to be. So just convert it to centimeters first and go ahead and import. As you can see now, our mesh has been brought into the stage, and it is where we want it for the most part. And this one, you can see obviously our texture, we forgot to flip our texture map on the vertical axis, which is no big deal. We can do that later back in Character Creator. So I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward the tape as I just import all the different articles of clothing. And we're back. So now we see that we have our character, and it has all the different articles of clothing on it. So now that it's been imported, we have to convert them now all to skin, so that way they will actually act as cloth. And that's a very simple process. So we're going to select our article of clothing. We'll start with on the side menu, I can just use it, doesn't matter where you start, just select the wrists, and in our modify panel we're going to go ahead in our modifier list, and we want to drop down and we want to select the skin wrap. So once the skin wrap is selected, we want to then tell 3ds Max what bone structure we want to use for it. So we're going to click on the add button and then click anywhere on our base Minotaur mesh, and you'll see that it'll add CC base body. So that's the body that we want, the bone structure that it's going to take. We want to make sure that blend to base mesh is selected, and we want to make sure that weight all points is selected, and then we want to go ahead and say convert to skin. So that takes just a brief second, and now you can see all of the bones have been added. So we know that our wrist is now acting as a skin wrap. So when we bring it back into Character Creator, it'll be able to conform like clothing. So again, I'm just going to go and do the same process. I'll walk you through it one more time with the waist belt. We just select from the modifier list. We want to select the skin wrap itself. You want to then add the actual Minotaur body, and then you want to convert to skin, making sure blend to base mesh and weight all points is selected. Convert to skin, and now I'll go through and we'll do a fast forward as I just add the rest of them to the skin wrap. So now that we've got all of our clothing added as a skin wrap, we're going to go ahead and export the whole entire character. So we can just select all, make sure we've got everything covered. And we're going to do an export now of everything. And we're going to call this, we'll export this to our folder as soon as we grab it for you. And we'll call this Minotaur base clothed. That way we just know which one we're dealing with when we import it back into Character Creator. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And I export using a binary function, and I'm using the FBX 2013 for my export itself. So we hit OK. That'll take a second, and now our character has been exported as an FBX, and we can now jump back into Character Creator, and you see our original Minotaur modified there. And now we're just going to import, and we're going to find our file that we just created, which we called Minotaur base clothed. So there it is. So we'll select that. Now we want to open up the original decrypt key that we use for our modified Minotaur, which we have in the same folder, and go ahead and open it. Now that's going to go and read now all the information. It's going to bring up our clothing options as it runs through the system and tries to compile all the different models that we just added as clothing to our base mesh. So here you can see the asset import, and it's important to note we were looking through, we want to make sure that these are all green and passed. Then we have all the different articles of clothing, and you can see how it's assigned them. So we want the wrists themselves to be just regular cloth. We don't want them to be gloves. Same thing for the laces and for the shoulder pads. So we want all of these items to be listed as cloth versus listed as gloves or anything of that nature. Also, as a layer, we don't want to have any of these conflicting, so we can then go ahead and add these, change the number on it for the layering for collision detection. And we're just going to go and layer these out so that they're all on a different layered number. And that way we don't have to have any worries about if we add additional clothes to it down the road or anything of that nature. So we can quickly do all that. And once we've finished, we will then have our imported fully clothed character. So we'll hit OK, and you'll see as it runs through, it'll just take a second obviously to build the data. And we're going to have our Minotaur character that is fully clothed with all the different pieces of armor that we can in turn then adjust. And there we have it. As I mentioned when we were in 3ds Max, I noticed that on some of the cloth pieces we had forgotten to adjust the vertical UV, which is no problem whatsoever. We can just go into select our model, and we can at that point in time just flip the vertical on it with the, we'll also do the same for the specular. And that way we get it adjusted correctly. We're going to do the same thing in with our diffuse map on the skirt because we can see that it's misaligned. So we'll flip that in vertically. And let's make sure we do the same with our specular, so that way we have the right adjustment. And I think our bump map was already, we did flip that one I believe already. so we're good with that one. Make sure. There we go. Okay, so now we have our fully clothed character, and we want to look and make sure that everything is as it should be. We can see that with a couple of the belts items that we imported, we can see them breaking through the skin over here. And we don't want that, but that's a very, very easy fix. So we're going to go ahead and select the belt, and we just want to go up to the conform button. And once we hit conform, it's going to bring up our collision detection, and we want to just calculate the collision, and it's going to then make the adjustments, and it'll pull it right out of the skin so that way it's not colliding with the body. We're going to do the same thing for the other belt. We'll calculate the collision, and that way we'll have our clothing mesh that will be adjusted correctly. And again, you can go do that for any of the actual models that maybe were just a little offset, like we have for the actual wrists here. We're going to do the same thing, and that way it'll adjust everything for us and we'll be all set. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I think everything else is looking all right. Maybe we'll do a collision on here. There we go. So now we have our fully clothed Minotaur character. Now, one of the things that we did in the part 2 was to show you how you can change and paint directly on your model in Zbrush, so that way we can adjust our actual character material settings. So you'll notice we still have on the character himself, we have just the regular base male texture. So we can then go ahead and adjust that now. We can select from our materials layer. We want to go to our skin body. And here we can see that we have the regular diffuse and we have the regular bump map. So we want to change this to add the normal maps and the diffuse map that we created. So first thing that we're going to do is going to tackle the bump map. So we're going to just launch it in our editor, and in my case I use Photoshop for my video for photo editing. And we'll take a look at the image layer size. 1024. We'll bump that up. I'm going to bump that up to 2048. And we'll fit that to the screen. So we're going to go ahead now and import our own normal map that we created in Zbrush. So we'll go to our folder where we had saved that, our tutorial folder. And we want to find our base body skin bump map. So we're going to open our own. And you can see that ours has a lot more detail on the actual map than the base male one. So with that, we can take it, we're just going to copy it, we're going to paste it right over top as a new layer, and as you can see now, ours has a more detailed detail level to it, and you can do it in different type of ways. You can blend it as a normal blend. In this case, I can use, because I started with the base normal map anyways, I can just use mine as a straight overlay, and we could add it in, or you can adjust it as an overlay like this to be extra strong if you're going to put it in that context. But for mine, I'm just going to leave it as normal because I'm just using the straight normal map that I created originally. I don't actually have to overlay it in this particular case, but for when you're going through it the first time, you may do it as an overlay for yourself. So we'll just merge that and we'll save. And now that's going to populate it right back into Character Creator for us. And you can see now our normal map has the added details. We've added in some veining. We've added in some body scarring on it. And now we want to make it match with our texture map for the actual body. So we're going to go ahead and just select the texture map from our, again, we created these in ZBrush, so you can see our skin body diffuse, and we're going to go ahead and open that, and that will now give our body the texturing that we did in Zbrush, which is the look obviously that we were going for. And we're going to do the same thing, same process with the head, which is again a very simple scenario. You're just going to select the skin, the head. We're going to open up the diffuse that we created in Zbrush. We'll open that up. That'll then give us the right texture map on its head, and we want to do the same thing with our bump map. We created our head with a more detailed bump map, normal map, in Zbrush, and we're going to import that now, so that way we can get the look that we wanted for our Minotaur character. And so there we go. So now we've got all the little details that we had originally created in Zbrush with our normal mapping, and now it's directly on our character in Character Creator. So that basically wraps up the whole tutorial. You can then adjust your model as we saw in the past. You can then create additional morphs on your character now that it's fully clothed. You can also now save out these articles of clothing as your own custom clothing that then can be reapplied onto characters. So you just select the article that you want. You want to, if you want to place it in as a custom undergarment, or you can select what you want to save it as. If you're going to save it as as a shirt layer or a pants layer, whatever you want to do, you can then save it. Obviously, I've saved a couple of mine already from the previous Minotaur creation. And same thing, then you can add your accessories for our Minotaur. We obviously had to have the horns, which again were created in Zbrush, and so we want to add those onto our character, and they'll populate in, so that way we can have them attached now as accessories to the Minotaur for our final product. I hope you found the tutorial enlightening. I know it's in 3 parts. It was quite long, but I was trying to be as thorough as possible, as if it was your first time going through using these tools, so that way you could get a comprehensive understanding. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.